episode is all about how to make some extra side income as a new therapist. So this is a video that I wish I didn't have to make. I think most people are probably in the same boat that I was, and I think a lot of people are before they know more of, thinking, okay, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to be a therapist, I'm going to make pretty good money because I'm going to be in the medical field, I'm going to be helping people, I'm going to be doing all of these things. And the reality is, being a therapist, you typically don't make a lot of money, especially in the very beginning of your career. So this was something I personally learned the hard way. I think most people in this field learn that the hard way, and it just can be really tough initially when you go in with these expectations of making an income you can live off of to start, and then you sometimes don't. It does get better as you move further along in your career, especially once you're licensed. A lot more doors open up for you, and you just have a lot more possibilities of what you can do, where you can work, what type of money you can make, stuff like that. But to start with, it's a little bit tougher. So I think other people, like general public too, there's this conception that therapy is like $200 an hour and we're all out here just like rolling in the dough, we're making so much money and we're charging all these people and doing all these things. And yeah, that's the case for some people, and cool, like good for them, but that's really not the case for everybody, and that's really not the case for new therapists in particular. So it can be really tough if you were coming into this field thinking that like right off the bat you're gonna be doing pretty well for yourself. Like a lot of jobs, if you have a master's degree, like you're already doing amazing with that. You're going to come into certain positions making a decent amount of money, making maybe even like really good money with a master's. There's some professions that having just a bachelor's sometimes, or certain certifications, like you can make a lot of money that way, and it's amazing. But unfortunately, being a therapist is not one of those. So it is typically a very slow start to making the type of money that would sustain you and help you like save, grow, like some of those things, which I don't want to discourage anybody who is in the field or anybody coming into this field, but I wanted to make this video because this is something I don't think enough people talk about, but I have seen enough people, friends, colleagues, stuff like that go through this, that I, like everything else I tell you guys on this channel, like I want to be as real as possible with what's going on and how this field operates. So, a lot of jobs when you're pre-licensed, they pay fairly low. The only insurances typically that really pay for therapists who are pre-licensed tend to be like Medicaid, and that is typically accepted in like low income places like community mental health and stuff like that. So those places in general don't have a ton of funding coming in, unfortunately, which then means that they can't really pay you a ton. And it just can get really tricky over time as you're trying to navigate graduating, student loans, housing expenses. A lot of times you have to buy your own supplies in those types of jobs. So study materials for the exam, licensing fees, sometimes supervision fees, like there's a lot of costs that come with being a new therapist, and it can really rack up over time. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, the income that you're making at your actual job to get your hours to be licensed is not enough to pay for all of the other things that you need in your life. And it's important to, one, understand that and come to terms with that. Possibly if you're still in school, even plan ahead for what that period of time is going to look like. And like I said, just being like realistic with yourself and the expectations of what it is for new therapists in this field. I hate it. I hate the system. I hate that for most places, your internships during like grad school are completely unpaid, even though you're working really full days and hours. I mean, I know for like the third year I worked, or the second year I worked for grad school, we had 3 days of internships. So I was at work 24 hours a week. and I wasn't getting paid. So all day Monday through Wednesday, I was at my internship working in a psych unit of the hospital, which for like 2 months of that, I was the only therapist, but I was still getting my master's. And somebody at another hospital was signing off on my notes. So I was doing so much work and I didn't get paid $1 or didn't get paid anything. So I think there's a lot of problems with the way this system works. Like, it's frustrating. And then with grad school, like if I had classes all day Thursday and Friday, 3-hour classes, when was I supposed to work? Because on the weekends I'm writing all my papers and I'm doing all the reading and the group projects and all of the other stuff. So it made it really, really tough. And there's this thought of like, well, when I graduate, I'm going to be working full time and I'm going to be making more money because I wasn't making any money. But that's not always the case. Like, you know, I know my first job right out of grad school, now mind you, this was at a community mental health center in North Carolina, but it was like $36,500 was my original salary. So but after taxes, I got paid $2,000 a month. My rent was $1,100 because I lived by myself, and that's not even counting like utilities. It was like 35 minutes away, so gas every day, groceries, like student loan payments kick up 6 months after you graduate. Like there was a lot of stuff and it was really tough. You get creative with what you do for fun out here when you really don't have money. So, and I will preface, there are certain jobs that maybe pay higher if you're pre-licensed, or there's the ability to make more. So maybe if you go into like a group private practice, you could potentially make a bit more because you can work more hours. But even then, pre-licensed people, because they can't charge a high fee for you, like the practice can't charge a high fee for you and you can't take insurance typically, then you are making like $20-30 a session sometimes, depending on the place. And it might sound like a lot, like, oh, $20-30 an hour, but as a therapist, you're not working 40-hour weeks. So it's just like, the whole system's like really crazy and it's tough to navigate. So again, I want everyone who is either going into this field, who is currently in this field, maybe you are the person who's pre-licensed and you're struggling to figure out how to make ends meet. Maybe you're now way past that stage and you're potentially that group practice owner, or you are supervising or mentoring new people coming into this field. Maybe some of these tips will even be helpful for you to pass down to them. So you're probably going to need some additional income as you are navigating this time period of being a like pre-licensed or associate licensed therapist, right? It's tough. So some of the tips that I would provide for you guys would be, one, pick a job if possible. Sometimes you just got to take the job that's offered. But if you're looking for jobs in order to get your hours and your license, try to pick ones that, you know, will give you the most, obviously the highest salary if possible, and negotiate that thing for sure. And that may be its whole own video, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, make sure that your first job is solid and you're either making as much as you can out of it, or you have a very clear understanding of what those boundaries are with time, because you are going to want to pick a second job or side hustle if needed. You're going to want to pick that and have it fit into your current work schedule, because your primary job is going to be where you're going to get those hours, and that's your ticket to getting more pay. So you're going to need to prioritize that. But say you're working at a place that it's like 7 to 4 is your schedule, or 8 to 5 or something along those lines. Then if you're going to have a side hustle or a second job, it might need to be something that you're doing on evenings or weekends. The good news is when you are getting your full license is you might have been used to in grad school having a similar schedule to what I mentioned of balancing all the schoolwork on top of the actual work at your internship. And once you graduate, yeah, you have to study for that exam, but you only have to work and do your job. So you aren't juggling as much, which is great. It just takes a little bit of time to find that rhythm, but make sure whatever that second job is, that it is compatible with your first job. So maybe it's something you can do on the evenings. Maybe it's something that you can do on the weekends. I also, if possible, recommend that the second job you take is like, it involves limited people contacts. You're going to be peopling all day, every day at your current job. And that is very draining. And I think for new therapists, You guys have more energy than some of us have, like further down our careers, because we've used it up. And so then that's why you'll see some therapists being like, well, full time is 15 hours, 20 hours a week at a private practice. And that's because of all the other stuff that goes into it. But when you're new in your career, you're more eager, you're motivated, you're learning all the things. Sometimes you're going to go like really hard at that first job. But that also means you're going to have a lot less time and space in your life for other things or continuing to use up that social battery. So I know some people will take second jobs that don't really involve a lot of people. So maybe it's like data entry, or they'll take like odd jobs here or there. You know, they're like painting someone's living room, or they are, dog walking, or something that's just going to involve a lot less people time to balance that out, because you don't want a job that's like heavy on the people when you've already been seeing clients, doing staff meetings, supervision, all of this stuff all week. That might burn you out a lot faster, and you're just getting started. So consider that. I know another thing to look at is, I would absolutely suggest looking at your budget. Once you have that salary, possibly even before, look at how much your rent is, look at how much you're spending on utilities, on gas, on food, some of that stuff, and then work your way backwards and be like, well, here's how much I need. So how much do I have to make? And that's going to inform your job search. And if you find that all of the jobs are a lot lower than what you anticipated, also make sure that when you're looking at those salaries, you are taking out taxes and stuff like that. Because sometimes it might look good on paper, right? So if I don't remember what it would be, but if I had broke down that like $36,500 that I made originally, I might have been like, oh, okay, we'll divide it over 12 months. Like, that's not so bad. But then once you take out all the taxes and fees and stuff like that, and I'm only coming away with $1,000 every 2 weeks or $2,000 every month, I only took home $2,400 of the $36,500, right? That was on the salary. So you need to absolutely factor that in when you're doing a budget. But I think it will give you a good idea if you're able to figure out, what do I need to survive, and hopefully a little extra bonus, so maybe you can have fun at some point, travel at some point. Look at that, and then that might help you when you're narrowing down what type of job you want to have, or when you're looking at that second job to figure out how much you need to make to supplement your original income and still be able to pay your bills and do the things that you need to do. So the money part, it's absolutely necessary. So look at that for yourself as you're budgeting and kind of planning how you're going to juggle these different jobs. Another thing I would say is, if you can, really find a second job that is going to seem easy. Maybe use a different set of skills, or have like crazy hours that you can use, right? So these are a couple of the jobs that people that I know have taken on when they were in grad school. So dog sitting was one. I know for me personally, I'm like a crazy dog mom, so I don't board my dogs. They're very people-like. You guys have seen them in random videos popping up, but there's no way they could be at a boarding facility. Like, one of them especially is very anxious, and if I go out of town, like, they need somebody to stay in the house with them and watch them, hang out with them, feed them, all of that, so that they're not super anxious. So I had a friend who was getting her hours, and so she was also, luckily for me, she was also dog sitting and house sitting on weekends. So low stress job. She wasn't peopling really. She was able to get other stuff done. She could go have lunch with her friends, come back, watch Netflix or whatever other stuff, and relax at my place, or get things done that she needed to. And I paid her to watch the dogs, and it was peace of mind for me. It was some extra income for her, and it worked out. So that's an option. Dog sitting, dog walking. Sometimes, especially if you work in a job that is not a traditional 9 to 5, maybe you work in a group practice, then you might have a more flexible schedule, and you can, watch or go walk people's dogs and do like Rover or one of those apps. There's also some people who bartend. Maybe that was something that they did in undergrad, or they did at their grad school, and there's pretty flexible hours with that. A lot of those places are open late, they're open on weekends, and yeah, there's a bit of like peopling, but it's not as heavy as some other types of jobs. And maybe you make some good tips and you have a good base salary, and that'll supplement your main salary and income. Another thing I would say, like, kind of along the same lines, hosting restaurants, stuff like that, that could be something that you could do. Sometimes nannying or doing like after school care stuff or whatever else. Something that's been helpful is a lot of people use that Nextdoor app for their neighborhoods, and sometimes certain parents might need their kids, somebody to watch them for 2-3 hours. Tutoring's another one. Sometimes people are looking for tutors, whether it's for English, it's math, it's college, essay, like tutoring type stuff. You're looking over their applications and everything because now you've gone to college a couple times. So there's lots of different options. So don't be afraid to kind of post things like that out there, on a neighborhood Facebook group or on the Nextdoor app, and see if there's any types of either odd jobs, or just put yourself out there. If you're like, well, I'd really be comfortable dog sitting because I love dogs, and at least then it's like not a lot of people's stuff. I can get things done. I could kind of come and go all weekends, and that works for you. You go study at someone's house for the weekend and hang out with some bubs. That is something maybe you put out there to be like, hey, I dog sit. Set a fee, because now you've already done the budget to figure out how much you need, and see what comes from it. Another job that can really work, but it does involve some good peopling. It's kind of a lot of it, but at the same time, the benefit is that you'll learn more, is doing like admin work or virtual assistant type work for a group practice, or sometimes individual practices have receptionists or virtual assistants or something along those lines too. You will be in a really great position to do that, being a provisionally licensed or associate licensed therapist, because you will know a lot about the system. You will have a really good understanding of what the clients are looking for, how to match them up with people. The other really huge benefit is that you will also know how a group practice or individual practice works, and that can help you understand if that's something that you want to pursue or not in the future. So, or if you're at a group practice, look into like what are some other things that you could do there that you could possibly get paid for. I know some of them pay employees to write blogs for the website, for like search engine optimization type stuff. There's like some different opportunities that might even exist within the place that you're working. So ask around, talk to your supervisor, see if there's other places there that you could potentially make some more money, and gain some more experience. There's also people I know that have, say they're working at like a group practice or someplace that the hours are a bit more flexible, and they're working at the grocery store. They're out there at Trader Joe's, or they're stocking the fridge at Publix or whatever else, because it's easy for the most part. It's routine. They get some side income, but they're not bringing all that stress home like maybe they do from their salaried job. So really think through what works best for you. I know some people have a tendency to get very desperate when they're like, I just need the money. And then they actually end up burning themselves out in their side hustle, which then means that when they're at their primary job, they're really not at their best. And you don't want to get burned out as you're literally just starting in this field. So I wish that money was not an issue. I really don't understand why the system is structured this way, that therapists get paid so low typically to start out when we have master's degrees. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And there's a lot of theories as to why that is, whether it's because it's like a helping profession, it's female dominated, it's not business related or tech related, like it's not within that same realm. But also if you look at sometimes what like dentists, doctors, like some people in adjacent like medical fields make a lot. Even sometimes starting out they can make a decent amount. Now they have their whole own process with getting to be, at that level where they're fully, I guess they're licensed too, and have that experience under their belt, or hit the different wickets of like intern, resident, attending, whatever else. But it's just really unfortunate that we go to school for so long and then you graduate thinking like, yes, I'm going to enter this field. I have an associate license. I'm ready to go. And then you're struggling with money. So just understand that that's a common experience. I know a lot of people who felt a lot of shame associated with that. You talk to your family and you're like, yeah, I got this job, and they're like, oh, that's so great. Why are you still working at the grocery store? Why are you still bartending? Then you have a master's. Because people just don't understand how the pay is structured in this field. So once you get that license, though, you have so many more opportunities to make more money, to have a job that's just your job where you don't need a side hustle, to develop your own practice. I mean, there's some associate level people out here that if your state allows it, they're running their own practices too. Now that can also be very costly because it's a lot to be a business owner and you get a lot of taxes taken out. Instead of 15% like you would get if you were just a W-2 employee, versus if you are a contractor like a 1099, or if you own your own business, you have to pull out, depending on your state, like on average 30% of your income goes to taxes. Then, it's kind of a lot. But for some people, that's worth like the peace of mind and the flexibility to put more hours on their schedule when they want and then take them away if they want. So lots of options out here for you all. But I just ultimately wanted to make this video, one, to give you just some more information so you're not going into this blind and or you don't feel like it's only you. This is something that is a real issue in a lot of places here. And which leads to my second part is I wanted you all to have some ideas of what to do if you're in that position where you're struggling with money. I mean, I think I lived off like Pop-Tarts and peanut butter sandwiches, a lot of undergrad pasta because I could make that and that was pretty cheap and I could eat that for 2-3 days. Like it definitely showed up in my food. Oh, how little money I was making. I was working a job that was like 8 to 6. So I did not have any space for side income, which really sucked. Had I known what I know now, I might have taken like a dog sitting job or something on the weekends. I would have loved that actually because I didn't have dogs at that point. But nobody was talking about how little money we were all making. So I didn't know that it wasn't just me that was out here. So yeah, nobody was problem solving really. It felt like, at least the people I was around or talking to, it was just a lot of complaining about how little we made and all of the hope that we'd make more once we were licensed, but there wasn't a lot of problem solving and that was very frustrating. So hopefully this video today gives you a little bit more hope that this is temporary. Once you get that license, those opportunities are huge. You can switch jobs a lot. You can work for the government and make more. You could have a pension. You could make your own business. Like you could do so many more things. So just understand that this time period, yeah, it sucks, but it is temporary. Do what you need to do to survive. Try not to give in to any of that shame or stigma that comes with needing to have multiple jobs even though you have a master's, or feeling upset that you are stocking shelves even though you have a master's. Like it's all temporary. So do what you have to do to survive so that you don't burn out, so you can pay your bills, so you can exist within this field long enough to see like the actual benefits of it and for you to become the type of therapist you set out to in the beginning. I've seen this space and time as people are getting their hours really do a lot of damage to some people who really didn't have the support or had maybe unrealistic expectations because that's what they were taught or told, or they just hoped for something different or better. But it does get better. So make it through this initial time period, study, pass your tests, get your hours, do your supervision, knock all of that stuff out. So one day you could be a decade plus past grad school and help other people and hopefully advocate and be part of that change for the system so other people don't have to go through this as they're entering this field. But good luck. If you guys have any suggestions of things that you've done for side income or experiences that you've had in this realm, then feel free to share below. I think the more that we all talk about it, the less stigma there will be associated with it. And maybe the louder the voices are too, the more change will happen. So good luck, guys. Go make that money. It does get better. If you want to follow along with the videos, then subscribe below, and then you could stay on top of everything. I also have an email list down there and a Facebook group for new therapists. You can connect with other people like you. And yeah, hope to catch you in any or all of those spaces. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.